The silence in that dining room was the kind that makes your ears ring. My brother sat frozen, staring at my phone screen. His wife's face on the video, Tupstress 11:47 p.m. November 23, reaching into our dying mother's jewelry box, 17 seconds. That's all it took to watch Celeste steal an $18,000 diamond ring and $2,400 bills. Vernon didn't move, didn't blink, didn't defend her. I watched the hope drain out of him in real time. The hope that there was some explanation that would make his wife innocent and his sister guilty. His wife sat across from us, silent now after screaming that I'd edited the footage, manipulated him, set her up. The loudest sound in that room was my brother saying nothing at all. Because there were 3 more videos, 3 more dates, 3 more thefts, all of them timed perfectly to frame me. And he knew it, but let me start from the beginning. 4 days earlier, when I was the one being accused. Quick pause before we start. Leave a comment, and tell me what you're doing while you listen. Driving? Working? Maybe just taking a quiet moment? I read every single one. Just so you know, this story has a few fictionalized elements woven in for clarity and impact. The lesson it carries is what I hope stays with you. The accusation came between the turkey and the pumpkin pie, delivered in my sister-in-law's practiced trembling voice. I'm Simone Lockwood, 36 years old. A night shift nurse who spent weekends caring for my mother instead of building the life everyone said I should have. That Thanksgiving afternoon, I stood in my brother Vernon's living room in Barrigada, surrounded by relatives who'd come for dinner, and stayed for a show they hadn't expected. My brother's wife Celeste, 38 and polished as always, stepped forward with trembling hands and controlled tears. The smell of roasted turkey still hung in the air, mixing with the cinnamon from cooling pies on the kitchen counter. Uncle Raymond, Vernon's father-in-law from Celeste's side, cleared his throat uncomfortably and looked away. Aunt Phyllis, my mother's younger sister who never missed holiday gossip, sat forward with barely concealed interest. I didn't want to say anything in front of everyone, Celeste said, her voice breaking exactly right. But the ring is gone. Mother's ring. And the money for her medications. The room went silent. My brother Vernon, 40 years old with grease still on his work shirt from the HVAC job site, stood silent as his wife made her accusation. The 3-carat diamond ring. Celeste continued, wiping her eyes. Worth $18,500, and the envelope with $2,400 cash for her medical expenses. Both missing from Mother Mildred's room. I opened my mouth to speak, but Celeste wasn't finished. Only Simone was here alone with her this week, she said quietly, looking at the floor as if the words pained her. 8 faces turned toward me. I tasted something bitter at the back of my throat. Vernon, can I just explain? I started. There's nothing to explain, he said, and the flatness in his voice cut deeper than shouting would have. I thought I knew you. My brother, who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd walked me to school when I was Kai's age, who I'd trusted with everything, looked at me like I was a stranger. How does trust evaporate in 17 seconds? You need to leave, Vernon said. Now. I glanced toward the first-floor bedroom where my mother Mildred, 65 and frail in her bed, lay behind a door cracked open just enough to hear everything. I waited for her voice, for her to tell them I'd never take anything from her. But there was only silence. Through the gap in the doorway, I could see her fingers gripping the blanket edge tight enough to turn her knuckles white. Upstairs, my nephew Kai, just 7 years old, sat at the top of the stairs watching the adults with wide, confused eyes. I picked up my bag from the hallway, my hands steadier than I expected. As I turned toward the door, something caught my eye on the shelf. The baby monitor for Mother's room, its green light steady and unblinking. I'd a dozen times before and never thought twice. But something about it now, in this moment of exile, felt different. I didn't know then that it had been watching everything. The silence in my apartment felt heavier than the accusations had. 11 o'clock at night, and I sat in the dark on my living room floor, with my back against the couch, still wearing the clothes I'd worn to Thanksgiving dinner. The streetlight outside cast a pale glow through my window. I kept replaying the moment Celeste stepped forward with those trembling hands. The way Uncle Raymond looked away. The way Vernon's face hardened before I even had a chance to speak. I said, "I'm sorry," I whispered to the empty room. Why did I say that? I didn't take anything. But I had apologized. Reflexively, automatically, the way I'd been conditioned to smooth things over, to make peace, to take blame even when it wasn't mine. The realization sat bitter on my tongue. The worst part wasn't the accusation itself. The worst part was that Vernon believed it without question. 36 years of being his little sister, of him teaching me to ride a bike and walking me to school, and promising he'd always protect me. And he didn't ask. He just looked at me like I was a stranger and told me to leave. Mother's fingers were gripping the blanket, I said aloud, testing the memory. She heard everything. Why didn't she speak? Her door had been cracked open. She'd heard Celeste's accusation, heard Vernon order me out, heard the silence that followed, and she'd said nothing. Just lay there with her fingers white-knuckled on the blanket edge. Trust doesn't crack all at once. It's more like erosion, slow and invisible, until one day you realize the foundation is gone. I walked to the kitchen, hands steadier now, but my mind kept circling back to that hallway, to the baby monitor sitting on the shelf with its green light steady and unblinking. Then a memory surfaced, sharp and clear. Last week, Tuesday evening, I'd been helping Mother with her medications, organizing her pill organizer for the week ahead. She'd gripped my hand suddenly, her fingers surprisingly strong. "Don't delete the apps on my phone, sweetheart," she'd said. "Especially not that one. The baby monitor." I'd assumed it was confusion, the kind of odd statement elderly people make when they're tired or medicated. I'd patted her hand and said, "Of course not, Mom," and moved on to counting out her pills. I thought she was confused. I said to my dark apartment. She wasn't confused at all. My phone was on the counter where I'd dropped it hours ago. I picked it up, opened the App Store, searched for baby monitor applications. The most common ones all advertise the same feature: cloud storage, automatic uploads, access your footage anytime, anywhere. "It saves to the cloud," I breathed. "Everything. It's all still there." The footage existed somewhere in a cloud server, time-stamped and objective. Every moment of what really happened, stored in pixels and data. But I needed a password to access Mother's account. And Mother was lying in a bed in Vernon's house, behind a door I was no longer allowed to walk through. I used the spare key I'd forgotten I still had at 6:45 Friday morning, when Vernon's truck was already gone from the driveway. The back door opened silently. I'd oiled those hinges myself 6 months ago. The house smelled faintly of medicine as I moved toward Mother's first-floor room. She was awake. Not just awake, sitting up against her pillows, eyes clear and fixed on the doorway as if she'd been waiting. "I've been waiting for you, sweetheart," she said, her voice stronger than I'd heard it in weeks. "I knew you'd figure it out." I closed the door behind me. "You knew? This whole time you knew she was stealing?" Mother reached toward her nightstand drawer, fingers trembling but purposeful. "Small things at first, a bracelet in October, cash from my wallet. Then I asked Vernon to install the baby monitor, told him it was for safety." She pulled out a folded piece of paper covered in shaky handwriting, an email address, a password. "I needed you to find it yourself," Mother continued. "If I told Vernon, he'd never believe me. But evidence he can't argue with." My hands shook as I logged into the cloud account. The app opened to a grid of saved recordings, organized by date and time. I scrolled back to November 23rd. There, 11:47 p.m. I pressed play. 17 seconds that changed everything. The footage was dim but clear enough. Mother's room at night, soft glow of hallway light through the cracked door. Celeste entered, moving carefully, glancing once at the bed where Mother appeared to be sleeping. She crossed to the dresser, opened the jewelry box with practiced familiarity, and lifted out the diamond ring. Then to the drawer, removing the cash envelope with the same calm efficiency. No hesitation, no guilt, just methodical theft. "There," I whispered. "Right there, no question, no doubt." "I watched it 6 times before Thanksgiving," Mother said quietly. I kept hoping I was wrong. "Why didn't you show Vernon before she accused me?" "Because Vernon needed to see you falsely accused first. Needed to feel the weight of choosing her over you. Otherwise, he'd find a way to excuse it, to protect his marriage." My mother, who could barely lift a glass of water, had been playing chess while the rest of us didn't even know we were on the board. Her fingers tightened on mine with surprising strength. "Before you do anything with that video," she whispered, "you need to think about Kai. He's 7 years old. Are you certain you want to be the person who destroys his family?" The question hung in the medicinal air between us. I didn't answer because I didn't know yet. I watched it 23 times between Friday night and Sunday morning. Not just the Thanksgiving theft, but everything the camera had captured in 6 weeks. Mother's question about Kai sat heavy in my chest, but I couldn't stop myself from scrolling through the saved footage. The app organized recordings by date, a timeline of surveillance I hadn't known existed. October 15th, 10:42 p.m. Celeste entered Mother's room, took a silver bracelet from the dresser. 17 seconds. November 10th, 11:15 p.m. $150 from Mother's wallet in the nightstand, 22 seconds. November 18th, 11:33 p.m. An unopened envelope from the bank, 14 seconds. Every theft occurred on nights I'd stayed late caring for Mother. Every single one. She wasn't stealing, I whispered to my empty apartment Friday night. She was building a case. Every time I stayed late with Mother, Celeste made sure something went missing. A pattern so deliberate it took my breath away. Saturday night, I worked my regular shift at Guam Regional Medical City. During our 2 a.m. break, my coworker Natasha, 35 and never one to mince words, listened to my story with coffee growing cold between us in the fluorescent-lit break room. "So you've got her on video," Natasha said when I finished. 4 separate times. "What are you going to do?" I stared at my hands. "Her son is 7. If I show this to Vernon, their marriage is over. And if you don't, She gets away with destroying your reputation. You really okay with that? The hospital PA system crackled overhead, calling a code to the third floor. We both ignored it, not our unit. I don't know, I admitted. Natasha leaned back in her chair. When does protecting someone become enabling them? The question followed me through the rest of my shift and into Sunday. I slept fitfully, dreaming of 17-second clips played on loop. Sunday evening at 6, my phone rang. Vernon's name on the screen. His voice was different than Thursday, softer, almost careful. Monday night, dinner at 6. Celeste thinks maybe there was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, I repeated. That's the word she gave him. She wants to apologize, Vernon continued. Clear the air. We're still family, right? I could see it so clearly. Celeste would cry, say she'd been stressed and confused, that maybe she'd moved the items while cleaning and forgotten. She'd apologize for accusing me. Vernon would watch me with those hopeful eyes, waiting for me to accept so we could all pretend Thanksgiving never happened. If I said yes and let it go, I'd forever be the sister who maybe stole and maybe didn't, the one they had to watch around mother's belongings. The accusations would fade but never disappear. But if I accepted the invitation for different reasons, I'll be there, I said. Really? Relief flooded Vernon's voice. That's great. That's really great. I said yes to Vernon's dinner knowing exactly what Celeste was trying to do. She wanted me to walk in, accept her tearful apology, and disappear quietly from the family narrative. Instead, I'd walk in with 4 time-stamped videos on my phone. Let her try to explain that. I went to see Mother one last time on Sunday afternoon, not for permission but for understanding. Why had she stayed silent when I needed her most? She lay propped against 3 pillows in the small bedroom that smelled of menthol rub and stale air. The afternoon light came through the window in dusty slants. Her hands rested on the quilt, gnarled and spotted with age. You think I'm a coward, she said before I could speak. I sat in the wooden chair beside her bed. I think you watched your daughter steal from her own family and said nothing. Because Vernon wouldn't have believed me. Her voice was firm despite the tremor in her hands. You know how he is. He loves both his girls the same. If I'd told him what I suspected, he would have demanded proof. And then what? Celeste would have denied everything, gotten more careful, and you'd still be blamed. I felt something shift in my chest. So you waited. I waited for you to find the proof yourself. She met my eyes. Words are wind, Simone, especially from an old woman who can't get out of bed. But video evidence? That's something even Vernon can't ignore. I'd been angry at her for 3 days. Now I understood. She'd been playing chess while I thought she was just watching the board. She's going to fight, I said. Tomorrow night. It's like watching 2 chess players circle a board, both convinced they see 3 moves ahead, both certain the other will stumble. That Sunday afternoon, I believed I held the winning piece. Somewhere across town, Celeste believed the same thing. We were both so sure of our strategies, so confident in our righteousness, that neither of us considered we might be playing the wrong game entirely. Mother nodded slowly. Let her. You've got truth on your side now. I stayed another 20 minutes, talking about nothing important. The weather, the Christmas decorations already appearing in some yards, whether the neighbor's dog ever stopped barking. When I stood to leave, she caught my hand. Whatever happens tomorrow, she said, remember you did nothing wrong. I walked down the narrow hallway toward the front door. Halfway there, I heard the bathroom door open. Celeste stepped out, froze when she saw me. For 3 seconds we just looked at each other. Her hair was perfect as always, her makeup flawless. She wore a pale blue sweater that probably cost more than my entire outfit. Simo. Her voice was pleasant, neighborly. I didn't know you were here, just leaving. I kept my tone equally civil. I'll see you tomorrow then. A small smile touched her lips, at Vernon's, for dinner. I'll be there. We were 2 predators pretending to be house cats, claws retracted but ready. She thought she'd charm her way through whatever I accused her of. I thought the videos would speak for themselves. We stood in that dim hallway, both so certain of Monday's outcome. I stepped past her and out into the fading daylight. Neither of us knew yet that we were both wrong about what Monday would actually reveal. I arrived at Vernon's house at exactly 6 o'clock Monday evening, with my phone in my jacket pocket, and 4 videos that would either restore my name or destroy what remained of my family. The porch light was on. Vernon opened the door with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Simone, come in. The house smelled of pot roast. Celeste appeared from the kitchen wearing an apron. So glad you could make it, she said. Kai came running down the hallway. Auntie Simone, you came! I hugged him. This was the real casualty. The boy who didn't know the adults around him were about to fracture. We sat at the table. Celeste served. Vernon asked about my shifts. Kai filled the silences with stories about his teacher, his best friend Marcus, the lizard in the backyard. For 15 minutes we performed normalcy for the child. 3 adults pretending everything was fine, while the real conversation waited like a held breath. It was strange how well we all played our parts. How quickly dysfunction learns to hide behind cheerful masks when children are watching. Hi, buddy, Vernon said. Go finish that math homework upstairs, but Aunt Simone just got here. I'll still be here when you're done, I said. He trudged upstairs. When his bedroom door closed, the silence turned sharp. Celeste folded her hands. I'm glad you came. I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. I said nothing. I've been thinking about Thanksgiving, she continued. About the ring, the money. In the stress of caring for your mother, things got confused. Maybe I moved the ring while tidying and forgot where. These things happen when you're overwhelmed, don't they? Vernon watched me hopefully. I think we should put this unfortunate confusion behind us, Celeste said, for the family's sake. You know that moment when you realize someone has underestimated you so completely, they've walked into their own trap? She thought I'd brought anger. She didn't know I'd brought evidence. Before I show you what was on that phone, are you still with me right now? Comment A if you think Celeste will talk her way out, or B if you think the video will break her. And add one short reason why. Please note, what follows includes fictionalized details for narrative impact. If that's not for you, you can stop here. Vernon leaned forward. We all want to move past this. Right, Simone? She's good, I thought. But she doesn't know what I know. Celeste's smile was patient, forgiving. The smile of someone certain she'd already won. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out my phone, and placed it face down on the table between us. Celeste's eyes dropped to it, and for the first time since Thanksgiving, her smile faltered. I turned the phone over and pressed play without saying a word. The screen showed Mother's bedroom in grainy night vision. Timestamp, 11:47 p.m., November 23. Celeste entered the frame, moving like someone who knew exactly where everything was. She went straight to the dresser, opened the jewelry box, and lifted the 3-carat diamond ring. 17 seconds. Then the drawer below, $2,400 bills. That's not real, Celeste said. You edited this. This is a setup. I swiped to the second video, October 28. Celeste, same methodical movements. Mother's silver bracelet. Vernon, she's manipulating you. This is fake. Anyone can edit video now. November 10. Cash from the envelope in Mother's Bible, fourth video. November 18, the jade pendant. 4 separate dates, 4 separate thefts, same careful hands, same knowing path through a room that should have been unfamiliar. Celeste stood abruptly. This is insane. I'm not listening to this. But she didn't leave. She watched Vernon's face the way I was watching it. He sat perfectly still. His eyes moved from the screen to Celeste's face, then back. I watched the hope drain out of him. The hope that there was some explanation that would make his wife innocent and his sister guilty. Watch him, I thought. Watch his face. He knows. The fourth video ended. Silence filled the room. Vernon replayed the first video, watched Celeste's hands take the ring, watched her count the cash. His expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes did. The way you look at someone you're seeing clearly for the first time. Vernon, Celeste said softly, pleading now. He didn't answer. The loudest sound in that room was Vernon saying nothing at all. Celeste saw it happen, saw the moment she lost him. Her face crumpled and she bolted for the front door, footsteps sharp on hardwood, screen door slamming. Vernon sat frozen for 30 seconds. Then he stood slowly, like his joints had aged a decade in 10 minutes. He walked past me without a word, down the hallway to Mother's first-floor bedroom. The door closed softly. I stayed at the table, heard the low rumble of Vernon's voice through the wall. Couldn't make out words, just tone, questioning, devastated. Then Mother's voice, stronger than I'd heard it in weeks. I've known for months, son. I needed you to see it yourself. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? Silence. Long enough that I knew the answer. Mother's voice again, muffled but clear. She thought I was too sick to notice. But I watch. I see things. More conversation I couldn't hear. Vernon's voice breaking once. Vernon emerged 5 minutes later with a face I'd never seen before, drained of color, aged by sudden knowledge. He looked at me once, just once, then turned toward the stairs leading to the master bedroom. I knew what he was going to search for, and I knew what he would find. I heard drawers opening and closing in the bedroom directly above me. Methodical, determined, the sound of someone who already knew what they were looking for, and where it would be hidden. 8 minutes passed. I stayed at the dining table, the phone still between us, then footsteps on the stairs, slow, heavy. Vernon appeared carrying a cream-colored cosmetics box I'd seen on Celeste's vanity 100 times. He set it on the table without looking at me and opened the lid. Makeup. Lipsticks lined up by shade, compact mirrors, brushes. He lifted out the top tray, beneath it, a false bottom. He pried it up with his thumbnail. There, nestled in soft white cloth, was Mother's 3-carat diamond ring. The overhead light caught the stone. It gleamed like the day our father gave it to her 38 years ago, unworn, unscratched, not pawned, not sold, not missing at all. It was in her makeup case, Vernon said quietly, hidden in a false bottom. I looked at the ring and understood everything with sudden, brutal clarity. She never intended to sell it, I said. No. Vernon's voice was flat, empty. She didn't need the money. She needed you gone. The ring sat between us like evidence at trial. $18,500 that was never about dollars at all. I picked it up. The weight was familiar. I'd seen Mother wear it every Sunday for church, every anniversary dinner, every special occasion that mattered. The gold band was still warm from being hidden. Every theft, Vernon said slowly, working it out as he spoke, happened after you stayed overnight with Mom. I know. She was building a case, making you look guilty, step by step, item by item. Some people steal for what they need, others steal for what it takes away from someone else. She timed them, Vernon continued. His voice had gone distant, analytical. October 28th, you were there. November 10th, you were there. November 18th. November 23rd, every single time. I was the only one who stayed late with Mom, I said. You have Kai. Celeste claimed she couldn't handle the medical equipment. Vernon looked at me and I saw him seeing it all for the first time. This was never about stealing. This was about removing you. The silence stretched. She wanted me cut off from Mom, I said. Completely, banned from the house during Mom's last months. And once you believed I was a thief, I'd never trust you again, Vernon finished. You'd be gone. Out of the family, out of Mom's life. He pressed his palms flat on the table. Out of my life. I thought about Thanksgiving. About standing in this same room being accused while Celeste played wounded and shocked. About the 4 days after when Vernon wouldn't return my calls. About how close it had come to working. Vernon picked up the ring and placed it in my palm. His hand steady but his voice breaking. I'm sorry. 3 words that couldn't repair what shattered between us on Thanksgiving, couldn't restore the 4 days I'd spent exiled from my dying mother's bedside. But they were all he had and I accepted them anyway. Outside, tires crunched on gravel as a car pulled away into the night. By Thursday morning, Celeste's side of the bedroom closet was empty. No shouting, no slammed doors, just the quiet evacuation of a life that had run its course. Vernon told me over the phone. She'd packed while he was at work, taken what was hers, left the rest. No forwarding address. No custody fight. She'd signed temporary papers giving Vernon full care. No final confrontation. Just gone. The absence of drama was more final than any explosive ending could have been. When people leave quietly, it means they've already said everything, or never intended to say anything at all. I started coming back on weekends. Mother needed help with medication, bathing, the small indignities of a body shutting down slowly. I did what I'd always done, what Celeste had blocked me from doing. But Vernon and I moved around each other carefully now. Like people navigating a room full of broken glass neither of us had quite finished sweeping up. Thanks for coming, he said that first Saturday. Mom's been asking for you. I'll always come. You know that. I know. He looked at his shoes. I should have known that before too. We talked around what happened, not about it. We discussed Mother's appetite, Kai's school, the oxygen concentrator. We didn't discuss trust, or Thanksgiving, or the 4 days when my brother had believed I was capable of stealing from our dying mother. Some wounds close quickly. Others leave permanent scars even as they heal. The shape of what broke remains visible forever. Kai asked questions. 7-year-olds always do. Where did Mom go? He asked one Sunday. She needed to live somewhere else for a while, I said carefully. Is it my fault? No, sweetheart, absolutely not. Did you make her leave? She said you were jealous of her. I felt Mother's hand squeeze mine. A warning, a comfort, both at once. Your dad and Mom needed time apart, I said. Sometimes that happens with grown-ups. It's nobody's fault. Vernon took him upstairs to explain more gently. I heard his voice through the ceiling, patient and steady. Mother looked at me, her eyes clearer than they'd been in months. I can breathe again, sweetheart, and she could. Over the next 2 weeks she improved. She ate better, sat up longer, laughed at Kai's stories. Her color returned, her voice strengthened. The toxic tension that had filled the house for months had been physically weighing on her, pressing down on lungs already struggling. With Celeste gone, the air itself felt lighter. Mother wasn't cured. The illness was still there, still terminal, but she was present, smiling again. And that mattered more than I knew how to say. Driving home after a Sunday visit in late December, I caught myself humming along to the radio, something I hadn't done since before Thanksgiving. The weight was still there, the distance between Vernon and me still real. But for the first time in weeks, I could feel it lifting, not gone, just lighter. 1 month after everything changed, I arrived at Vernon's house on a Sunday morning, to find my mother sitting up in bed with actual sunlight warming her face. Not propped against pillows like someone barely holding on, sitting alert. Her eyes tracked me as I entered and she smiled. Look at you, she said. Right on time. The room smelled different, less medicinal, more alive. Someone had opened the window. Fresh air moved the curtains. Footsteps thundered down the hallway and Kai burst through the door, all 7-year-old energy and zero concept of quiet. Grandma, guess what we're doing in science? He scrambled carefully onto the bed beside Mother, mindful of her oxygen line but bursting with news. We're making volcanoes. Mine's gonna have real lava, well, not real, but baking soda and vinegar. Mr. Harrison says mine's gonna be the tallest one. Mother laughed. Full, genuine, unforced. The sound stopped me mid-breath. I hadn't heard her laugh like that in 6 months. Just like your Uncle Vernon did in 3rd grade, she said. Her voice stronger than I remembered. Set off the smoke alarm. Had the whole school evacuated. Kai's eyes went wide. Really? He used too much baking soda. Your dad never does anything halfway. I noticed then what Kai hadn't asked. Not once in the past 3 weeks. He didn't ask where his mother was, when she'd come back, if it was his fault. Children are resilient in ways adults forget how to be. They accept new realities and keep building volcanoes. This, I thought. This moment is what I almost lost. If you've ever been falsely accused by someone you trusted, you know the deepest wound isn't the lie itself. It's being powerless to prove the truth. My gaze drifted to the baby monitor on the shelf. Green light steady. Still recording, still watching. It had started as evidence, cold, necessary, damning. Now it felt different. A guardian. A witness. Mother caught me looking. Still watching over us, isn't it? She said quietly. Always, I said. That small camera with its green light had seen everything we couldn't say. It had been patient when I wanted to fight. Silent when I wanted to scream. Mother had known what I'd needed to learn. That truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. It just needs time and someone willing to watch. The morning light caught the dust motes drifting through the room. Kai was drawing volcano diagrams in the air. Mother was smiling. And I was there, exactly where I belonged. I didn't know what would happen with Vernon and me. Whether the crack between us would fully heal or remain a permanent scar. I didn't know how much time we had left with Mother. Or where Celeste had gone. Or how Kai would remember these months when he grew older. But I knew this. Sometimes the people who protect us aren't the ones who fight the loudest. They're the ones patient enough to let truth speak for itself. And that morning, truth spoke in laughter and sunlight. And to you listening to my story, remember this: not every battle needs to be fought with words. If I could go back, I wouldn't have waited so long to install that camera. I spent days doubting myself, wondering if I was paranoid, if I was imagining things. Don't make my mistake. When something feels wrong, when the pattern is too perfect, when you're being isolated from people you love, trust that instinct. Silent observation isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the strongest move you can make. This wasn't just a revenge story about stolen jewelry. It wasn't about grandma revenge or getting even with Celeste. It was about something deeper. Truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. My mother taught me that patience is a form of protection. She could have confronted Celeste a dozen times. Instead, she waited. She let truth reveal itself in its own time. I believe God put me through this to teach me that lesson. That sometimes the people who protect us aren't the ones who fight the loudest, but the ones patient enough to let truth speak for itself. If this revenge story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever been falsely accused? How did you prove the truth? Drop a comment below. And if you think someone else needs to hear this lesson about patience and truth, please share it with them. Subscribe for more stories about family, faith, and finding your way through life's hardest moments. Thank you for staying until the very end. Your time means everything to me. One final note: this story contains fictionalized elements created for reflection and storytelling. Any resemblance to real people or events is coincidental. What I hope you take away is the lesson, not the details. God bless you.